What's up, everybody? Good late morning or early afternoon for some of you, and this is kind of the second half of the video that I made earlier today. The video earlier today was talking about Derek Hall and comparing his disappointing rookie year to similar players that have been drafted over the last 4 years, and I just wanted to get an idea of how alarming his relative lack of production should be. And the answer I came up with was not that much, but it's still disappointing. Now I want to look at things through the opposite perspective from the Boye Mafe angle, because Boye Mafe is kind of the guy who's exceeding, at least living up to, but maybe exceeding expectations as a Seahawk so far. So with Derek Hall, the question was, how do day two edge players do as rookies typically? With Boye Mafe, the question is, what kind of a leap do you usually expect an edge player to make when they're a day two pick from year one to year two? So Boye Mafe has taken a huge leap. He is definitely one of the edge rushers that took a big step forward from year one to year two. As a rookie, played less than 400 snaps, had 10 pressures and 3 sacks. Pretty good PFF grade, granted. He was good against the run, but Boye Mafe just kind of had a decent rookie season. This year, he's got 2 games left, and he missed a game against the Lions in week 2, and he's almost definitely going to get up to like 800 snaps, which is more than double. He could push up to like 60 QB pressures on PFF, and he has a real shot to get to double-digit sacks. So, huge improvement, massive step forward. But as this relates to the Derek Hall conversation, is this something you can usually expect to see happen? Do most of these day two edge players become studs in their second year after not doing much as a rookie? So, looking at the rest of the 2022 class for this comparison, Ebiketie would be kind of the guy that Mafe was being compared to a lot as draft prospects. Ebiketie actually played a lot more as a rookie than as a sophomore. You can see he actually played almost 500 snaps as a rookie, and he's not even to 300 yet as a sophomore. But he's actually been far more efficient and productive as a pass rusher. He has almost as many pressures, and he's more than doubled his sack count. So honestly, I do think Ebiketie's taken a step forward. He's just not gotten the opportunity to play as much, but he has shown that he has come along pretty well as a player. Another guy in this class who took a big step forward from a rookie year to a sophomore year would be Nik Bonitto. As a member of the Broncos, he played a decent amount as a rookie and had a marginal impact, pretty decent. But then the next year, he took on a bigger load and became a far more dangerous pass rusher. As a rookie, he had 19 pressures. So far this year, he has 44, so he'll has a good chance to get to 50 in not that many more snaps. He won't even get to 500. 1.5 sacks went up to 7 sacks. He's become a more well-rounded player, better run defense. So Nik Bonitto is another example of this. Alex Wright of the Browns went from a guy who played a ton and had very little impact to a guy who played a lot less this year and actually had a nice impact. His pressure count went up significantly despite getting his snaps cut almost in half. He went from 0 sacks to 3 sacks, and he's no longer an embarrassment on PFF. So Alex Wright's a good example. But all these other guys, not so much. David Ojabo went from a guy who doesn't play to a guy who doesn't play. Josh Pascal went from a guy who is just a moderately manageable role player to basically the same. Sam Williams was stagnant, mostly because it's harder to get snaps on that Cowboys defense, I think. Drake Jackson was stagnant. D'Angelo Malone basically didn't play this year after playing a little bit last year. Cam Thomas was about, I'd say even a little bit worse. I think he dropped off a little bit. And Myjai Sanders straight up got cut after 1 year and went to Houston and barely plays. So, decent number of examples of this happening, the breakout, but we also see some examples of it just plain not panning out that way. So, 2021, do the same thing. Deo Odeingbo of the Colts broke out in his second year. He got way more playing time, got more pressure, went from 0.5 sack to 5 sacks. And in his third year, by the way, Ode Yingbo, and I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, but I think that's how it goes, third year broke out even more. So he was actually really good in his third year. So little bit of a delay in his breaking out, but it did happen. You've got a guy like Joseph Asai who did not play as a rookie and became a quality role player in his second year. Although I think in his third year he's become kind of an afterthought, so not the best example. Patrick Jones II went from a guy who barely played for the Vikings last year to a guy who's been a pretty decent role player for them this year, been pretty playable, been pretty effective. And Baron Browning's another good example of what I'm talking about here. He gets way more work as a sophomore. His pressures go way up. Gets 5 sacks after having 0 the previous year. So we are seeing quite a few of these guys go up a level. But then there are quite a few guys here who either regress or don't get better. Ojulari is actually one of them. He did not do nearly as much in his second year. Carlos Basham Jr., I think he changed his name to, I can't remember exactly what he changed it to, but he didn't really get all that much more impactful. Malcolm Kuntz of the Raiders was pretty stagnant. If anything, he got a little bit less impactful. He broke out in his third year, however, so a little bit of a delay there, but we are seeing that kind of effect of him becoming a much better player down the line. And Chauncey Golston actually went the wrong way here pretty emphatically, I think, as an impact player for the Cowboys. So we are seeing some examples to the opposite. But again, it's a decent sample size of guys who need that time before they turn into whatever it is they're going to turn into. Something good, right? 2020, you can do the same thing. You've got guys like Darrell Taylor. Now, Darrell Taylor's kind of cheating because he didn't even play as a rookie, but he was quite impactful in that second year. He had 6.5 sacks, over 500 snaps played, 36 pressures. That's no joke. Julian Okwara went from a guy who barely played in year 1 to a guy who had a pretty decent impact in year 2. Quality piece. Terrell Lewis went from an afterthought as a rookie to a pretty good role player in year 2. PFF doesn't like him, though. Jonathan Greenard's an extreme example of this. He went from a role player who had 1 sack and 6 pressures as a rookie to a guy who, without only playing like 80% more snaps maybe, had 27 pressures and 8 sacks in his second year. PFF grade went up by 31 points. And then you've got Alex Highsmith, who was 400 snaps, 21 pressures, 2 sacks as a rookie. Second year, 800 snaps, 35 pressures, 6 sacks. And by the way, Alex Highsmith went on to become a stud in his third year. So again, you need to let things play out a little bit with a lot of these guys. Now, again, there are some guys that don't fit this mold. Gross Matos basically was stagnant from year 1 to year 2, although it took a while, but he's finally starting to kind of sort of break out now, although he's still not a stud. AJ Epinenzo was stagnant from year 1 to year 2, although he did break out in his third year. Josh Uche was stagnant mostly from year 1 to year 2 and then broke out in his third year. And then you've got a guy like Jabari, who I think has I think he's actually retired. And then you've got Anfernee Jennings of the Patriots, who I think missed his entire second year. So I don't think that it works in every case, but you are seeing it work in a lot of these cases. So first of all, I think this does prove that a lot of these guys just need a little bit of time. And second of all, and the other reason why I wanted to make this video about Boye Mafe from his angle is, how does his production compare to other second-year edge players who went in day 2 of the draft? 53 pressures and 9 sacks. Pretty good. You can scroll through this list here. Nick Bonito is close in terms of his production. 44 pressures and 7 sacks, so he's in the same ballpark. But you go back to the previous year, Baron Browning's the only guy who's even in the conversation with 38 pressures, 5 sacks. You go back to 2020, and I mean, the closest is Darrell Taylor and Alex Highsmith, right? 36 pressures, 35 pressures, 6.5, 6. Jonathan Greenard, I guess, because he had 8 sacks. But Boye Mafe is actually standing out among this entire group. 3 years worth of day 2 edge rushers getting drafted, getting a chance to play in their second year. Mafe is probably going to be the only guy in that group who reaches double-digit sacks, and he's also probably going to get to about 60 pressures in his second year. So what we are seeing right now with Boye Mafe is special. And sometimes I think people don't understand how special it is until you put it in data form. You actually put the numbers. You actually put the numbers out there and compare everything, and you see how you see how strong Mafe is compared to his peers. So that is, I think, a pretty good conclusion here. At the end of the day, when you're talking about these non-blue chip edge players, most of the time they're going to need some time before they break out. A lot of these guys have broken out over the last few years. Some of these guys needed until year 3 to break out. Gross Matos, I don't want to say he's broken out because it's been such a slow process, but he has eventually become a pretty good player. So let me know what you guys think down below. I'm just trying to calm people down a little bit because I am starting to see a little bit of panic around Derek Hall. I don't think we need the panic. I don't think we need that energy right now. It's too early. We're going to have to let this play out next year. See you guys later. Go Hawks. Let me know what you think. But wanted to present some data that I thought was pretty cool.